With the Redmi 8, Xiaomi has taken a few big steps forward in terms of things like aesthetics and features, but there also seems to be one key regression in terms of processor power. Does this mark a huge shift in strategy for Xiaomi with one of its key products, or does it make more sense to allocate more of your budget to things like cameras and battery life than it does to the CPU? We're about to find out. Before we get started with our full review of the new Redmi 8, please do remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon in case you haven't already, so you can be notified of all our new videos. The Redmi 8 feels extremely high quality with loads of attention paid to small details and no rough edges anywhere. No wonder the company has slapped a "Designed by Xiaomi" label prominently on the back. The back of this phone is glossy but not slippery. It's surprisingly resilient against fingerprints, but you'll want to use a case to prevent small abrasions and scratches. It's curved just right at the edges and corners to make usage comfortable. The fingerprint sensor worked fine, but we were warned that face recognition isn't very secure and can potentially be defeated with a photo of you or by people who look like you. The front of this phone is fairly standard. There are thick borders around the 6.22-inch display and a water drop style notch at the top. The chin is thick enough for a Redmi logo to fit, which we would have preferred not to be there. The display is good enough for movies and casual social videos. It isn't especially vivid, but is bright enough to be used just fine even under direct sunlight. Widevine DRM is restricted to L3, so you'll be streaming videos at lower than HD quality, but you might not really notice. The speaker is surprisingly crisp and loud. Xiaomi surprised us with a USB Type-C port on the entry-level Redmi 8A, so of course there's one here too. It's joined on the bottom of the phone by a 3.5mm audio socket and a single speaker. The power and volume buttons are comfortably positioned on the right, and the tray on the left accepts 2 nano SIMs as well as a micro SD card. The Redmi 8 also has an infrared emitter on the top, so you can use the phone to control appliances. We have MIUI 10.3.1 based on Android 9, and our review unit was running the August 2019 security patch. MIUI continues to annoy us with a lot of pre-installed bloatware, ads, and spammy notifications. Sadly, there are ads in Xiaomi's default apps, and you can see pop-ups when installing anything from the Google Play Store. MIUI is generally quite polished and easy to use. You can disable notifications for the problematic apps, or you can uninstall some of them entirely, but honestly, nobody should really have to go through this. Also, as always, the infrared emitter is a nice touch to have. While the exterior of this phone is impressive, Xiaomi's choice of components on the inside raises a few questions. We have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 439 processor, which is a bit of a downgrade compared to the Snapdragon 632 used on the Redmi 7. The Redmi 8 has two variants, 3GB RAM with 32GB storage and 4GB RAM with 64GB storage. We might be a little spoiled after reviewing so many of Xiaomi's previous phones that have exceeded our expectations that the Redmi 8 falls a little flat. There's nothing wrong with its performance, and it's definitely good enough for day-to-day tasks, but it isn't exciting or new. As for gaming, you're better off sticking with simple titles. We were able to run PUBG Mobile, but only at low settings, and that too with a lot of jerkiness. Asphalt 9 Legends also ran, but with some serious lag that made it much less enjoyable than usual. We also found that the back of this phone got quite warm after 2 or 3 races. On the other hand, the battery lasted us comfortably through a full day of heavy usage, which involved taking a lot of camera samples, playing these games, and about 2 hours of video streaming. Our HD video loop test ran for 11 hours 44 minutes, which isn't great but isn't too bad either. We were able to charge up to 25% in 30 minutes and 51% in an hour using the included 10-watt power adapter. The Redmi 8 has a 12-megapixel f1.8 primary rear camera and a depth sensor on the rear, as well as an 8-megapixel f2 front camera. Xiaomi has stuck with the dual camera setup, which means you get one camera with the depth sensor for portrait effects. However, quality leaves a lot to be desired. We found that this phone sometimes took a bit too long to lock onto a subject and didn't quite get exposures right when dealing with white subjects or bright backgrounds. As for photo quality, things were hit or miss during the day. We did capture some crisp shots with good detail, but many times we were also disappointed to see blurred or dull results. You can get some nice depth of field naturally using the camera in its default mode. Portrait mode shots looked botched in the viewfinder, like the phone was simply unable to detect edges, but the saved results were fine. The front camera didn't capture great detail in selfies. At night, we found it hard to get usable shots. Details were blotchy and focus was not very sharp. We had to stand very still to avoid causing motion blur. However, there was a fair amount of detail and subjects were well defined with a bit of ambient lighting around. Selfies were unfortunately completely blurry and messy. Video recording goes up to 1080p 30fps, and detail as well as exposure were decent in the daytime as well as at night. Stabilization is non-existent and you shouldn't try to move around while shooting. With the Redmi 8, Xiaomi is sidestepping raw performance and focusing on quality of life features as well as design. We were disappointed with the cameras though. This is something that we think Xiaomi could have done much better at, and unless the issues we faced can be fixed with software updates, some buyers are going to be disappointed. Anybody considering buying this phone should also take a very good look at the Redmi 8A, because if there isn't anything much that you'd really miss, that could be a good way to save some money. On the other hand, we're also going to have a review of the new Redmi Note 8 coming up very soon, and if you want to step up, that could be a good way to do so without spending a whole lot more. That was our review of the new Redmi 8. Thanks for watching, and as always, for all things tech, do visit us at gadgets360.com.